Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Jess and I do a whole bunch of fashion and beauty videos plus some vlogs, but I am doing a filming gear video today. So I get a lot of questions about like what I use to film my YouTube videos, my vlogs, what I use to take pictures on Instagram and all that jazz. So I'm going to walk you through my 3 different cameras and why I chose them. So a little disclaimer at the beginning, I am definitely not like a camera geek, so I'm not going to be talking about like all the fancy stuff that you can like Google and YouTube. Someone who's a little techier that can give you all the rundowns. I'm going to tell you like more of a hands-on like why I use these cameras for more like layman's term type of explanation. So hopefully you find that helpful. Let's get started. Okay, so the first camera that I'm going to talk about is the Sony A7 III, which I am currently filming on. This is the newest camera to my collection. It basically replaced my Canon 6D Mark II. I think it's the Mark II. I've had it for years and years, like since the beginning of my blogging career, which was like, I want to say 2014, 2015. So I've had it for a good 5 years and I love it for photos. Canon still, in my mind, has the most beautiful color profile when it comes to taking photos, but I wanted a camera that could handle photos and video. I wanted something that could film in 4K video. So if you're not familiar with what 4K video is, it's basically the highest like quality of video that you can watch on YouTube right now. So they have like obviously more advanced quality videos out there for those professional commercial makers, like TV show makers and all that jazz. But if you're looking like at the bottom of the YouTube screen right now, I think it's this. When I edit, what side would it be on? This side, like that little settings button, you can see like 1080p, 720, and then 4K. So my last couple of videos I've been actually exporting in 4K, and it just makes me so happy to see everything so crisp and clear. It takes a lot more memory though, so you also have to have like a computer and a hard drive that can handle all this like processing of like huge files. So I can talk about my editing process in another video, but essentially I got this camera because I wanted to have 4K video and to have a camera that has more autofocus spots. So the Canon 6D that I had only had like the focus points in like certain regions of the photo. So like I felt there were so many times I was shooting and I couldn't get that composition of the photo that I wanted because I couldn't move like the focus like button to that certain area. Then I knew after watching a lot of YouTube videos about the A7 III that it had so many more focus points. And that's why like the photos that you can get from it just like sometimes like look so much nicer because you can play with the composition a lot more. The other thing is though that like when I was getting this camera, the A7S came out, which is like essentially a lot of people call it like the content creator camera because it can do 4K video. It's a little bit smaller body. It has a flip screen display so that you can like vlog and watch yourself when you're videoing on it, and it has a lot of the same features as this A7 III. But because it's a newer camera, I just didn't feel comfortable spending that much money on a camera I didn't know that much about. Like there's so many reviews, a vast amount of people that I admire their work for use the A7 III. So I was like, you know what? Like it's tried and true. If I'm gonna spend over $3,000 on a camera, I better like know what I'm gonna get. So that's why I ended up with this one. I ended up buying it secondhand from a wedding photographer that actually only used it for a year, and I trusted that camera was still in good condition, which it is. So I spent that money that I saved to purchase a G series lens. So because I was a Canon user before, there is an adapter that I have that I can use my Canon lenses for. I think it's the M adapter, something like that I could still use for this camera, but the autofocus is not as fast. I can't use it for video basically, and because I self-shoot so much, it just wasn't working for me. I had to get a Sony lens, and I decided to get the 24mm 1.4 G series lens because it just had the best reviews. I live in a smaller home, so the rooms are tighter, so I wanted a wider angle lens so I could have the camera as far as it could be but still get that distance in between me and the photo. So another thing to keep in mind if you are switching to a full frame camera, which this is, and which the 6D was, you are going to be looking at spending a lot more on lenses because full frame lenses are just more expensive. So unfortunately, once you jump to a full frame body, you're looking at close to $1,000, if not more than $1,000 for lenses. So keep that in mind if you're looking to go that route. Am I happy with the A7 III? Yes, I am. I absolutely love it. Like even my husband and my mom, who take a lot of my photos, well, pre-lockdown and pre-stay at home, like they noticed the difference. My mom was like, oh my gosh, like it's so much sharper, like the colors look so different. Like she likes the Sony coloring. I still prefer the Canon's coloring, but there's like post-editing that you can play with. Essentially, like they saw the difference in it. It's a lot faster, like crisper, just like the way that it autofocuses. It was just great and I'm very happy with it. And in terms of video, it took me a while to get used to, for sure. Like I'm gonna show you the setup of this, like obviously with the other camera, but because it doesn't have a flip screen, I had to get this T-bar with the Lilliput display so I could see that it's actually focusing on me and like the framing while I'm filming. And then I got a microphone just to make sure the audio is as clear as possible. So setting up for filming is not as easy as it used to be, like with my Canon G7X that I'm going to show you next. But the quality of video that you get from this is just like unbeatable. Like my two other cameras, you can't do it. You can't get this quality from it. This is like basically solely a stand-up YouTube video filming format. So what do I use this setup for? I use it for like all my haul videos. I use it for like this kind of sit-down video, and I use it for my self-shooting at home and outdoors. So anytime I take photos, it's usually with this. Sometimes with the G7X if I'm vlogging. Those are the kind of videos that I use it for. You're not gonna be using this camera, at least not a lot of people will be using this to vlog, to move around, because it is a heavy setup. Unless you are the one filming and you can see the display yourself, or you have like that huge like cage and you're like, you know, doing all those fancy video things, which you're not even gonna watch my video for because I don't think any of you do that. And if you do, awesome. There's a lot more informative videos for you out there, but this is for the type of content I create. Like I can't hold this camera in video. It's too heavy. So the A7 III has its own battery that like lasts a long time for me. I saw a review saying that like the battery sucks. I haven't had that issue. When I bought it off of the girl, she had 2 Sony batteries and 2 like off-market batteries. I have never had to use the 2 off-market batteries because like even if I'm filming for like hours on the Sony battery, I still have that second one as backup. So I don't think the battery is an issue. Haven't had an issue with that. Lilliput has its own battery for the display, so that's why it's not pulling off of the camera. If it didn't have a battery off of that and you had like a display that used the battery of the Sony, then you might have a problem and might have to change it up a lot, but I think the battery is completely fine. So if that was a review that you were iffy about, I wouldn't worry about it. So overall, I am super happy with this camera purchase. Do I miss some things about the Canon? Yes, the main thing that I miss is that the like phone app for self-shooting, you don't have the ability to like focus on yourself in it. So for Canon, when I was like, let's say like sitting in front of the camera, had the app open, and I could like touch screen and press where I was, so it would focus on me and then take the photo. For the Sony, it doesn't have that option. So you have to figure it, like you have to work around it, whether or not you have like an object that you put like right where you want to be and you focus on it like behind the camera, or you like kind of, you use manual focus and you figure out how far from the camera you're gonna be sitting and standing. That's what I've been using lately. The manual focus totally works for me. I just still love the quality of the Sony photos that much more. It's so much crisper. If you want to look at some of my like photos from before, I think like it would be early 2020, look at those photos, and then look at later 2020 photos. I can see a difference and I love it. So if you are looking to invest in your first full frame or even second full frame camera, I definitely suggest the A7 III. All right, so up next is the trusty Canon G7X. This is the Mark II. The Mark III has come out. I'm still filming with the Sony A7 III just because I have it all set up now. I'm just gonna show you the body of it and then film a bit on the Canon G7X so you can see the difference in quality. So this is the first like filming camera I ever got, and I am on my second one. So I got a second one after I came back from Japan because I felt like the autofocus was kind of going on it. I still have that other one just in case, like for backup, because it's not completely dead. It's just like doesn't autofocus as well anymore. I find that this is the best vlogging camera because it is the lightest. It has the pivoting screen so you can easily see yourself when you are vlogging. I will show you the Canon M50 that I also got for vlogging. So when I was looking for the replacement for the first G7X, decided to go the Canon M50 and ended up getting a second one of these too, because the Canon M50, although it's a great camera, it's just not as easy to use. And when you're vlogging and you're carrying camera with you like everywhere every day and you have to like consciously remember to turn it on, set it up, this is the easiest one to set up. And also I use this one for my Instagram Reels / TikToks when I decide to share it on TikTok. This is the most multifunctional camera, I think, in my arsenal. So if you have like 0 cameras, you've been filming, you've been taking photos on your iPhone, on your whatever phone you have, this would be my suggestion because it's super easy to use as a beginner videographer. I think that it's just super easy to use and it's super light. Like I have this baby tripod, is Joby tripod on it so that I can like, you know, kind of extend it a little bit like that, or obviously like set it up on the table. Whatever, manipulate it however you want. But in terms of video quality, this one I would say like your best like version would be like 1080p on YouTube. Like you can't get 4K on this video camera, which I feel like is what made some people go to like the Sony point and shoot camera. I forget what that one's called. I think it's like the Sony Alpha something, but it's like the competitor product to this. When you Google like best vlogging cameras, it's either this Canon G7X or that Sony. And obviously I got this when I was still a Canon user. Will I end up trying that Sony one? Maybe eventually. So the highest frame rate you can have is 50 frames per second, which I wasn't even on. So I'm gonna switch that on for vlogging and see what difference that makes. So this is a photo I took with the G7X, and this is a photo that I took with the A7 III. Obviously there are differences, but if like, let's say your budget is like $1,000, like this would be the thing I would spend my money on because it can do everything, especially if you're only shooting for Instagram and maybe like your blog. Like you don't necessarily need like the highest quality photos. For me, I decided like I wanted my aesthetic to be a little bit like clearer and like have these like higher quality photos. For my campaigns, I just like felt like those were the kind of photos I wanted to have to represent my brand. But there are so many like more successful people out there that literally shoot with like a camera like this or with their phone. That's their aesthetic. It just depends on what kind of aesthetic and content you want to create. So I'm very happy with this camera. I always recommend it to someone who's looking to start on YouTube and start like content creating. It's just so versatile. Okay, so this is what the G7X looks like in terms of filming at 50 frames per second and in the same lighting. I'm seeing a difference in color in the display of the G7X and the Lilliput display, so I'm not sure if we're gonna see that when I go to edit. I'm also kind of worried about talking about like all this like video quality because I haven't tried to export in 4K with non-4K files. So if it ends up being that I can't export and edit like the G7X and M50 files as 4K, then we might definitely not see the difference in quality. So we'll see. Anyways, very nice quality regardless for like an $800 camera for someone who wants to get into vlogging. Even I did all my hauls in the beginning with this camera and it was totally fine. I just like wanted to up my game a little bit and like do like crisper video, so that's why I ended up with the Sony A7 III. But I've used the G7X for years and years, so definitely worth the investment. Super light too. Like obviously if you're vlogging and sticking your arm out this much, you're going to want a camera that's light and like usable, something that you can put in your purse and whip out whenever you feel like you want to grab some b-roll or some footage for the day. So next up is the Canon M50. I don't have like a whole bunch of great things to say about this camera because I feel like I haven't figured it out yet. So I didn't give it a great chance when I got this as a replacement for the Canon G7X, my first one that broke, because I just wasn't used to how heavy and big it was and the fact that like it pivoted to the side, not the top, and then like the lens that I had was like too tight like to the face, and you always had to like do that to make the camera like turn on, versus G7X you just press a button and it all like is ready to go. And it is heavier, like you can see that is bigger. right? But this one you can film in 4K. The thing that I've learned though, like very briefly, I haven't like explored it too much, is that in 4K, it cuts the screen. So it zooms in even more, which is why I got the widest lens there is out there. So I ordered the 11 to 22 millimeter lens recently for this camera because I was pretty set on wanting to use this camera. I feel like it can produce nicer video than the G7X, but I really have to play with it some more. I just haven't had time with it. I wouldn't recommend it as your first filming camera. I feel like it discouraged me a lot of times because it's just not as easy to use. It's just harder. I'm also not very strong in terms of arm strength, so anything heavier than the G7X is like, I'm like, oh no, I had to put you down and talk, and then the angle's always weird. So in terms of photo taking, this one you can do a lot more with because you can switch lenses. So the benefit of being able to switch lenses is so you can have different frame zooms. So the G7X, you're literally like pressing the zoom and zoom out button, and you lose the quality of the image when you zoom in more. But with a lens, like an actual zoom lens, you're pretty much like sticking with the same quality. You just might be playing with a different f-stop. So the reason I got the wider lens is just because when you're vlogging, you don't want like everything to be like too tight. You want to have like contacts like for like what's behind you, and also it's kind of like awkward if you have like the camera that close to your face, and like I always cringe a little bit when I'm like editing my videos and I'm like, this is way too close to my face. I don't know if people want to see that much of my face, so I wanted to like get something that was wider. And also like I started watching Aspen Ovards, I think her last name is, her YouTube videos and her vlogs she films with this camera, with this lens. I think the difference though is because her house is a lot brighter everywhere, so like the video quality ends up looking nicer. For me, I found it quite hard to film with this when it's dark out, especially during the Canadian winters. Like this is like the first sunny day we've gotten all week. So I started having to use the G7X again because it's just better at like auto adjusting the lighting when it's dark in my house. But I'm going to definitely play around with this a bit more. I got like a little LED light to sit on top of this so that I could have at least some light on my face if it's dark. So I might try that out on next week's vlog. This week's vlog is mostly going to be on the G7X. So make sure you tune in and hit subscribe and notification button if you want to see the vlog. So now we're switching to filming with the Canon M50. We're set at the 11 millimeter zoom right now. You can see it's a lot wider. So now we're flipping back to the Sony A7 III, which is at 24 millimeter. It's a fixed lens, and I'm sitting like a lot closer to the M50 than I am the Sony camera, but I still seem a lot further away because of how wide angled this lens is. It does have an image stabilizer, so when I move a little bit like this, it's not like that bad. But the thing with this camera is that it's super heavy. So I might have to do some bicep curls or some arm workouts if I'm going to want to vlog with this more. It might just be more of like a stationary camera for me. And you can see like as the clouds cover the sun, it gets darker. I don't know how the quality is going to be on this one because I'm trying a new frame rate, which is 59.94, I think. My hand's starting to shake because it's so heavy. So we'll have to see when I go to edit this how much better it is. We can compare the G7X, which is at 50 frames per second, the Canon M50, which is at 59.94, and then we're filming the 4K on the A7 III. So this camera I'm still experimenting with. I don't have too much good things to say about it right now. I definitely would not recommend it for a beginner vlogger, beginner YouTuber looking to start creating content, because it's just an extra hurdle of like learning how to use it to create good video before you actually get used to creating videos yourself and editing. Like starting video in general is hard. Like I remember when I started YouTube, it was like the editing process that was just so unknown to me. So it would be so hard for me to like get motivated and want to edit any YouTube video. So I'd say don't get this one for now until I like figure it out, or until like you have started getting used to creating videos. This one is definitely my beginner friendly suggestion and recommendation. And then of course the Sony A7 III that I'm filming on right now is the like final one that I would invest in when you're like, yes, like content creating is my life. This is the career I want to pursue, and I'm going to be doing it for years and years. So yes, I will drop a couple grand on my camera gear to produce this content. Last but not least, I did say I was going to mention 3 cameras, but I kind of forgot about my iPhone 12 Pro Max. So I do have content that I create with the phone, obviously all my selfies, but I do video content on it. So there is a setting in, I think, I want to say like the 10 Pro and up, that you can film videos in 4K. So some of my vlogging videos, there are clips from my phone, and like as long as the lighting is like pretty natural and pretty bright, you get really nice quality videos in it. It's very smooth, and sometimes it's even better than the G7X. So especially now, like with the pandemic, like I don't really want to carry like extra things, so I'll just film like my B-roll or something I really like want to document with the phone. Like it's really not that bad. So even the selfie version, like I'm talking to you guys to the camera right now, obviously it's a little bit closer to my face than I would like. It's maybe closer to the like zoom frame of the G7X. It's not too bad, not too shabby. But again, it's really nice and bright, like right by the window. So that's why the quality is probably nicer. It is a front facing camera, so it's not as nice as the back facing camera. So that was 4K 60 frames per second on the front facing camera of the iPhone. So you can see that compared to the 4K of the Sony. Obviously it's a little bit less smooth, but it's pretty darn good. Like if you also don't want to invest in a camera like the G7X and you're like, hey, I need a new phone anyways, do I spend the extra? Like phone itself is like $1,500. So you get a phone, basically a computer and a camera with it. Yeah, you can pretty much do almost anything with it. That's another option. If you don't want a camera yet, if like you're still kind of considering whether or not content creation is for you, the iPhone 12 Pro Max is a really, really good option. So those are all the different types of gear that I use to film my videos and take my photos. Hopefully you found that helpful. If you have any specific techie questions, I can like link you maybe to some like techie YouTubers videos, but I hope that that kind of gave you an idea of like why you would buy each certain camera and for what reason. And it explains it to you a little bit better, because I know that when I start researching new cameras, especially at the beginning, and like people are talking about like the ISO, the autofocus, like the lens, like the frames per second, it just like doesn't make sense to me, and I'm just like, will this do what I want it to do for my content? So I just wanted to make a video like that for you guys. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I'll try my best to answer them. I will be linking all my gear as well down in the description box. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications so you don't miss my next video. Like the video as well. Follow me on Instagram because I post there a lot more than YouTube, and I will see you next time.